Okay, we have the approval of minutes of the previous meeting. Is there any discussion? All right, would you have a motion?
I make the motion that we accept the minutes as written.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
I'll bring my drink up here since I'll be here for a bit. So our next item is 3A, COA 2024-019 for 708 Park Street. This property owner, or the applicant is Sam Wright, the property owner is Alex Ortega. They're requesting to install an 18-foot by 20-foot metal storage building at the end of the driveway for a new home located at 708 Park Street. The roof of the metal storage building will be a black, dark gray color, and the walls will be white. It's going to be a similar color to the new build that's on that property. Like I mentioned, this is a new build in the Zion Hill Historic District, so it does not appear on any of our overlay documents, on any of the surveys, because the building's actually still under construction. So staff find that city ordinance criteria B, J, and K relate to this request. You can see here and also in your packet, this is the site design of the property. You can see Park Street towards the top of your screen with a new building, and then the proposed location of the shed that would be at the end of the driveway. The applicant has also supplied some drawings of the shed. There's no plumbing, HVAC, electrical going to this building. It's simply a storage shed on the back of the property. And then on your left is a current picture of the property, and on the right with the drawing of what the shed would look like on the property if installed. And of course, like I mentioned, it's here in the Zion Hill District. It is a new build on a previously vacant piece of property. And I'm happy to answer any questions after public comment, if there is any.
I have a question. Have any of the neighbors been notified of this? Just curious. You know, the it's a beautiful neighborhood. I mean, I know it's a new structure. I drive by it. Actually, I rode by it twice today. So I'm just, because it's highly visible, the metal building's going to be highly visible. I'm just curious if is there any feedback from the neighborhood? They're pretty vocal, that group.
And that may be a question for the applicant, who I believe is here. As far as on the staff side, we do post our agendas publicly with the address, all of the information. So that has been posted on the city website. The agenda's out front, and also I think it's sent to all the media outlets as well. So it is posted like everything else from our side. As far as feedback from the neighborhood, I'm happy to turn that over to the applicant, who I believe is here. Mr. Wright?
Hello, I'm Sam Wright. I'm the general contractor for the job. What would you like to know about it?
I just, you know what, I just know the neighbors, and if you haven't got any feedback yet, I just don't know. But they've been aware, because one of them is city council person, you know. So, that was just my only answer, because they're just very vocal.
Sure, they haven't reached out to me,
They
and my
haven't said anything?
sign has been there for the last 6 months.
I was
so-
just asking,
Yeah.
because it's pretty visible. We're gonna see it. It's gonna stick out like a sore thumb.
Can I ask you, what is the distance on the home from the front to the back? From the front of the home to the back garage?
From the
How many
front-
feet?
From,
Front
it's
to back,
probably about 50
Not the setback, the
feet,
actual
I would
house.
say. It's 50 foot deep, so.
Right, I'm trying to get a proportion with this actually, I mean, this looks like a tiny little thing, but it's actually 18 by 20, right?
Yes, yeah, that's the size of the
And so is
path.
that, so is the size of it half the length of the house
It's
or
probably.
more?
No, it's probably it's less than half of the depth of the house. Depth from front to back,
Right,
and then width across there is, I think the house is 100 foot, 110 feet wide, so.
but the
about a
depth,
fifth.
so the depth of the house, I'm just trying to get a visual.
It's 50 feet on the garage side, on the driveway side.
So 50 feet. And so this storage shed is going to be about half the size of the depth of the house.
Less than, yeah.
I'm curious as to why it wasn't located where you can't see it from the street, like behind the house.
I think the ground behind there doesn't allow, or wouldn't quite so easy access. Plus, it would also need driveway to roll that way. So,
Could I ask you, I'm sorry, have you finished?
No, no.
Go ahead, if you haven't finished. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just noticed that one of the items said that it should be compatible, and it lists a number of things, and one says material. And obviously, this is not a compatible material with the house itself that's being built. So is there any consideration of making it more compatible with the house?
I'd have to talk to my customer about that, but this is just what they said they'd like,
You know,
and so
in
it's
a historic district, you would kind of
understand.
expect it to be compatible with the house itself, especially sitting right out front in the open like this is, and it really is pretty visible from the street.
yeah. Well, it's at the end of the driveway, so yeah.
That's my only concern.
Yeah, it's pretty visible. It's a kind of, hate to say the ugly word. It's a bit of an eyesore when you drive, I mean, when you drive down, it's quite a lovely street. I don't have to tell you that. So my concern is that, I mean, you do have this big new house, which sticks out. I mean, if there's some way you could make it a little bit less, I don't know, obvious. I mean, can the materials be the same color as the brick, at least?
Well, they
Instead of this stark white and black that's highly contrasted?
well, yeah. That's my that's my
That's just your- I
photoshopping
know.
skills right there. So it'll probably be more similar in color to the house.
I'm just afraid there's gonna be a lot of negative feedback from the neighbors too.
Can you add brick to it?
Not easily, but it could be potentially.
At least the front
It's
facade.
it's a different design, a different
Sure,
material,
sure.
different structure. So yes, it could be, but it,
So is it actually gonna be placed on, well, no, it looks like you already have a concrete pad poured here already for it.
yes, yeah. Well, that was a parking pad, and then
No, I see the driveway, but then I
Right.
see it like a space and then a pad.
yes, yeah. So that was designed, I think, originally as an extra parking spot. It doesn't look like it's connected.
Doesn't look like it's connected.
It's not, because there's a drain that will be running between the two.
So you'll have to add to this pad to do
Well, just in the front to connect the two.
just to connect it to, but it's the pad that's poured already
Yes.
is the size of the building.
Yes, yeah, the one that's there with what looks like a pile of bricks on it.
Yes, okay.
Is there a way to notify the neighbors that are adjacent? I just am, I don't want it there first and then they all complain and cause a real ruckus here.
Right.
As far as the notification for the neighbors, there's nothing in our code of ordinances or the Hlpc ordinance that requires or asks city staff to do that. There could be a courtesy notification that I believe planning and zoning does. There would just have to be specifications that come from council as far as when that is required. So it's not applied indiscriminately to, if we think something might be a problem.
Well, since one of the persons I'm concerned about is on the council.
And that could be something that comes from them. I just want to make sure from the staff side, it's not something where I determine this might be a problem, so I'm going to send out a letter, but I think this one's okay, so we don't send out a letter. So really, that would need some criteria that would come from council. We can certainly look into that. But as of right now, there's nothing written into our code that would ask us to do that.
Could I ask that the council be notified?
I can.
Okay. Then,
Can I also ask if there's any other structure like this in the area or the neighborhood that has already been approved?
There is a house similar to this as far as the home style, right down the street over on North Laniana, very near the intersection at Laniana North, that has similar roof lines. I don't know if they have a shed in the backyard. They are on a somewhat an exposed lot as well. I do believe they have some stuff in the back, but I don't know if it's a shed. There is another property that's over in the Sternhuya district that had a new build or a new-ish addition to a build. And they put a shed in the back and did make some effort to make it blend with the property, but not make the building seem like it was an old building that's been there forever, because that's something that's typically discouraged. So it did blend in with the building, but they didn't try to make it look like a 1920s carriage house. They did similar colors and things like that.
I have a question.
Sure.
The size of the pad that's there, that will be the size of the building, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the concrete that's been poured is the size of the structure that they're planning on putting on there.
Okay, and that's 18 by 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pad looks small, doesn't it?
It looks small, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
Okay.
But the house is large, if you drive by it.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
I just want to comment myself. I personally, I want to help support the project, but I'd have a difficult time voting for this with it not being compatible materials for a new home that's already being built there. It'd been very simple to make it compatible, but that's just one opinion.
I think we all agree with that opinion, before we can vote on it.
Oh, yeah, y'all, feel free to come up.
I'm Karina Ortega, I'm the homeowner. Hello. You were my band mom back in the day. I don't know if you remember me. But, of course, we're in a historic district. The house, the shed is gonna look nice because, one, I'm picky. And I know it's visible. And then we have talked to our neighbors on and off, Ms. Ballinger, and I don't know actually if this has actually come up officially, but you know, they're always there talking around, and we mentioned what all the updates we're gonna do. So, and then another thing I wanna point out, that right behind us is the McMichael School house, the yellow building. And then they have a shed behind it that is made out of metal. And you can see it visible from all angles of Lanana and Park Street. So, and it's the same material, and ours is probably gonna look better too, to blend in to the house, make it modern and whatnot. So I would like you guys to consider that as well. So you already, I don't know if they needed a permit or not to add their
Is it
shed.
behind their house?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, well, yours isn't behind your house.
Well, you can actually see it if they would have taken the picture a little bit, you know, farther. You would have been seeing it behind the building. It's just I think at the angle, so you can see it if
From
you're
the street.
parked straight ahead.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
it's
can-
super
I think
tall.
I drove by your house twice today, so that would be highly visible.
Okay, but you know, to my point is that it'll look nice. We will probably cover the shed behind. So we'll like to you reconsider. We did go with that material option because it is cheaper, is manageable. So. to add to
And
the
you did
cost.
talk to Kathleen Bellinger? She
We've
saw
not.
pictures?
I don't think she's seen
Okay, that's my
pictures,
point.
and also, I don't think we've talked, I've said that we've mentioned to our neighbors all the updates. I can't keep up with what we said and not have said. I know Mr. Ballinger, my husband has talked to him a lot, but, I mean, so we could more than gladly talk to all our neighbors around and let them know, you know, what's going on,
I
and,
think just if the city council's notified, that's plenty.
okay. So, that's it.
Are there materials that would be acceptable besides brick?
I haven't a problem with it being metal if it's painted the same as a brick. The brick's an easy color to match. I mean, it's just a pale, kind of yellowish beige color, so an easy color to match. I just think the neighbors need to be notified that a metal building that's obviously a storage shed is sticking right out there where you can drive by it and see it because it's the end of the driveway.
Okay,
I mean, highly visible.
okay.
We'll make it look really.
And I do know the neighbors very well.
Can you put a brick facade, like at least on the front of it, or, you know, halfway up, or
Yeah.
4 feet up, 3
That'll
feet
look
up
cute.
on the side, you know, facade, and then the side that's facing the street,
Yeah.
something like that?
Because you can't even landscape in front of it because it's concrete. At least if it's landscape and covered, it
Oh,
wouldn't be so
there
obtrusive.
is a gap between like the,
He said that it's to allow for drainage.
Yeah.
Would be a great landscaping tool.
but we'll make it. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. So,
More questions? Thank you very much.
thank you, sir.
And Judy, one thing of note, you mentioned notifying council. Council also does get a copy of our packets as well when we email them out. So they do have copies of the packets when that goes out that has all the same information that you all receive. So I would just wanted to mention that.
Before we approve it.
Yes, they are sent the packet.
So I don't know how
Whether
we,
they see it or not.
well, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know how to, their next door neighbors will,
Right, right.
she tells them, she may not.
And that's all the information staff has, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jessica, can it be approved with stipulations that there be something added to the front of it?
So typically, we vote either approval or denial of what is put in front of the committee. And usually if it is a denial, there is feedback given, so that way the applicant has something to go on. But you are voting on what is written. Occasionally, we have requested that, applicants put landscaping in front of it, but again, that is not something that is enforceable if it's just a request.
So that would mean basically they would just have to come back again the next month.
Correct. Or at any time they choose.
So there's basically not an option to put that as part of the motion today then.
Since that's not something, in the past, when we've made a motion with a stipulation, it's been when an applicant has come and said, we can do option A or B. And then the committee has said we approve option B as presented by the applicant. Typically, we don't add stipulations that the applicant hasn't proposed to us beforehand, to make sure.
I'm not suggesting you change your process. I just wanted to clarify
Yes.
for the applicant and for us also.
Yes, that is typically what we do, is if they supply two options, we can do stipulation of, we pick option B, but if it's not something they've supplied, it would be a approval or denial, and then we give them some feedback and ask that they come back whenever they would like to, or if they would like to.
So we could make a motion that based on approval of the basic, the neighbors, I mean, obviously the Fishers are gonna see it real clearly from their house. Kathleen doesn't see it as well, but then the neighbors on either side.
I don't know how you quantify that though.
Well, I just think
I
they
don't think we
the
need to get
neighbors
into
need to
voting
be
on that.
acutely aware of it.
Yeah.
Well, and as far as the approval or denial should be based on our city ordinance criteria that council has approved. So council does get a copy of this, and there is nothing in our ordinance saying that we have to tell neighbors or what the requirement is of that. So approval or denial or anything in between, should be based on our ordinances, not if.
Before we say yes, I guess I'd like to see the city council notified by it. I want to know that they know ahead of time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, is there any motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we tentatively, I don't know, that we agree to approve it after the city council.
I don't think you need to do that.
No? How do we do this?
Me neither.
Make a
I have
motion.
a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If we've allowed somebody else to put a metal building behind their house just right down the street, how can we tell them they cannot?
So, a lot of that is, and we would have to go back and look, at several things. There are people that, we do tell everybody you're under historic overlay, you should be coming before us. Every once in a while, there is someone that puts something, and we do not see it beforehand, or know about it if it's in a backyard. But there have been quite a few buildings that are newer builds and then have had storage sheds added to them, mainly because councils in the past have really looked at the acceptability of contemporary designs, and kind of viewed it as, this is a storage shed, it can be removed. You're not adding to a historic building, you're not altering a front facade. So we have had applications like this approved in the past. We've also had people that have just put up storage sheds in their backyard and we can't see them from the street, so we don't know about them. So we've typically seen those two things. We've also seen applications denied. So that is up to the committee based on our ordinances and if you feel it's appropriate or not.
Do you have a motion? No motion.
I make a motion to approve the COA 2024-022.
019.
Is there a second to that motion?
All of them's the wrong one.
Zero.
Hold on.
The first one is 019.
Okay, 019, sorry.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by raising their right hand. 2. All opposed, signify by raising their right hand. 3-2, motion fails.
And just so we have information to officially pass on to the applicant, when we write the letter, was the concern the material what would the feedback y'all would like to give them?
My concern is material itself. I would vote for it if they just have material compatible to the house on the front of the building, the visible part of the building. But that's only my opinion.
That's a good opinion.
Yeah, I would say the front and the side, at least partially,
The front
say
for sure.
brick.
I mean, it bothers me that the roof is black. House is dark gray. I mean, needs to be connection between the materials. I realize it's not a
It's not colored.
permanent.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
it says
this-
right here,
Oh, right, yes.
black, dark gray color, walls will be white.
Right.
I
Oh,
will,
okay,
yeah.
Pass that on. Our next item is item 3B, COA 2024-022. The property is 310 North Mound Street. The applicant, Lynn Myers, who's also the owner, is requesting to replace exterior siding with new siding material. The siding will be painted to match the existing that's on the building. Currently on the building is an untreated wood siding, which the applicant has been told by multiple contractors is not meant to be on the exterior of a building, that is currently in disrepair, rotting in multiple places, and they are proposing to use a new wood composite, Superboard is the brand, Superboard siding. It's a wood composite material. We painted to match the existing siding. A note on this one is that the property is 310 North Mound Street. The actual building we're talking about is a garage in the rear of the property that was built about 10 to 12 years ago. It is not visible from the street in any direction. 310 North Mound is contributing to the Washington Square National Register District, and staff find that B, C, D, J, and K relate to this application. You can see here on the right is the existing wood siding that's on there in the red color, and on the left is kind of a proposed example of what that siding looks like. This is an aerial view of the property, Fortney House on Mound Street. You can see over on the left is Mound Street. The front of the house faces that, and the red square indicates the building we're actually talking about in the back, that's not visible from the street. This was supplied by the applicant. Some technical information about the siding she is proposing, and then some pictures of the disrepair and the wood siding they've replaced multiple times that is starting to rot again. And I am happy to answer any questions you have, and the applicant is here as well, and we're happy to have any public comment.
You have any questions, anyone?
Is it like hardy plank?
Step above.
Sorry, just since we have mics.
Well, they said wood, that's why I was.
It's similar to hardy plank, but the brand is called Smart Board.
Okay.
And then on the back of the house, I think they are planning to use hardy plank because it comes in a thinner veneer.
Right.
Which we need because that was an addition on it. I brought you a sample of what the siding looks like. It's so rotted, I just pulled this off without even using any tools.
Any more questions?
That's it.
Thank you.
I make a motion that we accept COA 2024-0-22 for the replacement of the existing siding with the new material.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Our next item is 3C, COA 2024-023 for 601 East Main Street. The applicant is Brendan Todd from Brendan's Barbecue. They are requesting the installation of an 8-foot by 20-foot metal storage container at 601 East Main Street. This storage container is a freestanding container that the applicant is planning on painting to match the building. And it will be located on the northwest corner of the property near an existing dumpster. Similarly, 601 East Main Street is in the Downtown National Register District. It's listed as a one-story masonry structure, but again, this is not affecting the actual building itself. This would be in addition to the property. And this property has undergone quite a big remodel since 1986. and has also had a porch structure added to the east side of the building that was approved by HLPC about 3 years ago. Staff find that B, D, J, and K relate to this request. This drawing was supplied by the applicant. You can see the Brendan's Barbecue building drawn in the bottom left corner of your screen. There is an existing dumpster with a fence around it, and the applicant is proposing to put this storage building right behind that, at the rear of the property. This is the storage container that would be painted, that gray and red that Brendan's Barbecue is painted currently, and this is a street view. So in the back left-hand side, you could see a fence right there. The storage building would go right behind it and would extend about 2 feet outside of that current fenced area. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after any public comment.
Any questions?
Does it go on this side of the fence or the other side of the fence?
According to the drawing, it should go behind the fence. So it would go, if you're looking at it from the street, it would go
Right.
back behind that fence.
You said it'd be behind it, wouldn't it? Isn't it beside it?
If you're looking from the street, it would be behind it, but it's sit right beside it.
If you're looking from Main Street, it's,
If you're looking from Main Street with Brendan's Barbecue building directly in front of you, that dumpster is kind of to your left, and so the storage building would, or the storage container would be right behind it.
Okay.
So it's essentially if you took this picture and rotated it once counterclockwise.
any more questions? We have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve COA 2024-023 for approval of the storage container at 601 East Main Street.
We have a
second
motion.
it.
A second? A second?
I second.
Joanne,
Yes, I
sorry.
did, sorry.
Sorry.
I'll be
I
louder
thought
and
you said,
funnier.
well, no, I thought you said something, then I looked. We have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, it's approved.
All right, our next item, 3D, is COA 2024-017 for 108 East Hospital Street, the building known as the Old Mize Factory or CBH Insurance. The applicant, Ricky Lee Willoughby, and her father, Richard Hurd, applied for this. This is, the applicant is requesting to install 7 4-foot by 4-foot butterflies painted on lightweight ACM board, which is a substrate, that would then be attached to the west facade of this building located at 108 East Main Street. The substrate would be anchored into the existing brick. This building is listed as a 1965 building located in the downtown National Register District. It's listed as good condition in 1986, and it's a 1.5-story to 1-story rectangular brick commercial structure. So they are proposing to paint these 7 4x4 butterflies and also a 3-foot by 8-foot substrate board with some wording on that same facade. Staff finds that B, C, D, H, J, and K of our ordinances do apply, or could apply. This is an existing picture. Excuse me, it was taken from Google Earth because I realized I did not put an existing picture in your packet till today. So this is an existing picture, and then this proposal was submitted by the applicant. Those are the butterflies that would be painted. They're approximately 4x4, and they would be anchored into the brick, along with the wording is at that top right corner that says Mayor's Monarch Pledge. And then we also have a map of where the building is, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I believe the applicant is here as well. Is here as well if you do have any of them, and we'd be happy to do that after any public comment.
I have one comment of concern of the, I have no problem, this brick does not, it's not our problem as far as absorption of moisture retention. It could be painted directly on the brick. So my question is, why are we drilling holes in brick, which is a permanent situation?
And that would be a
versus-
question for the applicant, which I can.
My parents were told when they bought the building, that was my mom's original intent, was to paint the brick. And they were told by HLPC at the time that they were not allowed to paint the brick because there was no paint on the brick already. So, no paint.
Well, can I clarify that? Because the reason we say no to the brick is because most of the downtown buildings were built in the 1800s before hard fire brick. This is a 60s building, mid-century, that came from a furnace. It's not a porous brick. So it's,
So what
I
do you-
don't
I
know.
mean, I'm confused as to-
It was a misunderstanding from what I've learned about our commission historically and today, is that it was better to say no if you don't know the structure. And since I know the date of this building and I'm an architect, that this brick would have been a hard-fired brick. It is not a porous brick. So to paint it would be, besides that, the way you're painting it it just wouldn't be an issue because you still have so much brick exposure. That's my only comment. I mean, the holes, you own the building. You're putting holes in your brick. Do you want the holes in your brick to be there when the butterflies disintegrate?
Well, it's an easy fix.
Is it?
Can we paint the brick then?
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, we
Of course
would
you-
rather paint the brick.
Yeah, I mean, painting the brick to me would be a sound way of doing it.
Okay, well, again, we've been operating
I
off of,
understand.
I know that you understand, but
I get where you're coming from.
I get where you're coming from, but I'm gonna make it known that, again, for the past,
Yes, I understand.
You know, and
20 plus years, that's been the going deal.
that's not to say that there wouldn't be the votes in this commission to say not to paint it again, too. And so you're very right, that
Yeah.
you were told that. In fact, I know you were told that.
Thank you.
And I know you were told that.
But it's a vote of the full commission, and if the majority of the commission would have to vote for you to say you could paint it, for you to be able to paint it.
Right, no,
But that's us.
understood, but again, I'm not gonna beat the dead horse.
I mean, it's
so
their
to speak.
building. The brick, yes, this is a non-porous brick. If they want the holes in the brick, they own the building. See what I'm saying? I'm
I agree
doing my
with,
due diligence as a
I would,
professional
I
telling.
would absolutely agree, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
we do,
I'm just-
so.
You got your artist with you, you can talk to her.
I mean, would you,
Could
do we
always-
have to turn in another,
Would she have to,
application?
Jessica?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes, she would. I
And
won't be
one-
here.
One thing, let me just,
No, go
I'm
ahead.
not trying to scoot you
No,
over here.
no, go ahead.
So one thing I want to mention as far as painting on the brick or not painting on the brick, a lot of that depends on the HLPC seated at the time.
That's right.
Some look at our ordinances and say painting on unpainted brick, whether it's, that old wood fire brick or modern brick, is not a minimal alteration. Other HLPCs have said, it's not historic brick, you're not going to hurt it if you paint it, so it kind of depends on who's seated at the time. And historically, typically it's been, you don't paint on the brick because you can't undo it, which is the case with some brick and not the case in others. So it kind of depends on the council or the committee seated at the time. As far as submitting new applications, since it's not presented that way currently, we would have to redo the application, do a denial, resubmission, if the committee voted to deny the application in front of them. Just like we did on the previous shed item, it'd be the same thing, that it's not presented that way, so we would have to come back and do that with a denial and then a reapplication.
Could we get, approval of the ACM board and then submit another application for it to be painted for next month? Would you wanna
Yeah.
do that? At least that way, we would have approval one way, and if you deny us to paint it, then we are already set to go with the ACM. We wouldn't have to turn in another application.
I have a question. What are your plans to maintain it, to keep it looking good as time goes on, so that it doesn't just?
It's signboard, it's metal signboard,
Mhm.
so the paint on it, it would be the same as, with any of the murals that are happening now, it's the same paint, and we would seal it.
Okay. And that would weather and,
It would weather just as well as if we painted it directly on the brick.
okay,
It would be the same.
okay. And if you did the butterflies on whatever you were going to put it on, would that be the same, that it would?
It's the same, it's a, sign material, it's a metal sign material.
Realistically,
Lightweight.
what is the expected life of that?
It could go anywhere from 7 to 15 years, we'll use a UV coating on there. It just depends on how much the sun is going to hit it, but it's on the same wall as the flowers are on the garden capital and the flags. Still facing the same direction. So we use high-quality paint, exterior paint, and high-quality artist acrylic paint.
Okay, well, when the time comes for it to be removed because it's deteriorated, which would be easier to remove if it was put on board and attached to the wall, or to have to take the paint off the wall?
To take the paint off the wall, you would typically just repaint it.
Okay.
Either way.
Either way, or you repaint the signboard, or you would repaint the mural.
But that brick can take power washing. It's high-fired.
Yes. I
So-
don't know, I don't power wash.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, I mean, because I know the structure of the building.
Power wash the paint off.
Yes, well, yeah, you can clean it up. You can't do that with downtown brick, because it'll deteriorate.
right.
But this is hard brick from the sixties.
So as the owner, what would you rather do? Go ahead and
Building.
attach it to the wall or paint it on the wall?
Personally, I like the attaching because it gives it a nice little 3D effect. I think something like that would be great, but I'd also talk to Michelle and find out the pros and cons and. make
Because
sure-
7 or 15 years from now, you're the one who would have to
Build the hole.
do something.
I paint too, so that's great.
Okay.
You can touch it all up myself if need be. But, I mean, you know, it's, again, you could sit here and what if, you know, 7 years down the road, but, you know, you handle it as it comes up. So, I mean, something may happen and blow them down, and we gotta go back out there and get them put back up. So, it's a fix. I mean, it's an easy fix.
Well, the reason I was asking was because if we approved it, as is, we could go ahead. If we're gonna do paint,
Gotcha.
you'd have to come back.
Yeah.
That's why I was
I
asking.
mean, I'm fine as is, I think.
Anything,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
anything you want.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just go as is.
Okay.
So I make a motion that we accept COA 2024-017, installation of the butterflies on the ACM board.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, in discussion? Jessa, I just want to reiterate to you that I've said this before. I think we're doing all this without any guidelines whatsoever. We're not thinking ahead. We're not planning for the future at all. And I'm not opposed to the signs, but I am opposed to us doing things that are going to impact other people later. And people wonder why we didn't think about that. And I strongly feel that we should have some guidelines in terms of dealing with this. And that will include guidelines about responsibility later when the signs begin to deteriorate and those kinds of things. I'm not going to vote for it. I'm not going to vote against it, but I'm not going to vote again on a sign until we have some kind of guidelines. Period.
Can we say signs and murals?
Yes, signs and murals. I mean, well, I'm speaking basically of murals.
And so something like that would have to originate from our city council. They've set out that chapter 50 historic overlay ordinance, or, excuse me, historic overlay ordinances, in that chapter 50. So those are the guidelines that we currently have as far as separate policies, procedures, things of that nature. A policy specifically would have to originate from city council.
You know, I personally feel we should not be considering these until we have some guidelines. And I'll be very happy after today to call each council member and tell them that, because I think we're not planning very well for the city at all by just independent, each item just deciding whether it's good or not. We need some kind of guidelines, because you're asking people to make a decision about something they have no idea what's going to happen with it in the future. But I don't mean that to be a negative comment at all. I'm not opposed to the murals, but I am opposed to us not planning for the city in a way that's appropriate.
Can we put a pause on all things signs or murals until we get a proper policy about it?
As of right now with our ordinance, we cannot. These have our COAs, historic restoration grants, demolitions, all have timelines tied to them. So unless it's something that city council changed, or unless there was some natural thing, like when we had COVID, some of those rules got suspended, but unless there's something like that, or council changes those guidelines, staff has no option to put pause. There are some of these that if we do not vote on them in a certain amount of time, they are automatically approved.
What is that time?
Which is what, 30 days?
Um,
60 days?
I will have to go back and double check, but it's 30 or 60, believe it's 60 days that has to
Okay.
be brought before the committee, otherwise it goes into an automatic approval.
Okay.
But I'm happy to send out those links to our committee again, just so everybody has that in front of them. But as far as pausing, staff doesn't have the ability to do that. 90 days. Thank you, Jerry.
That's a long time. You could get a policy
Yes.
together in 90 days, very easily.
So if we had to deny some of these because of that, and then it could be brought back before us when we get more guidelines?
So the denial would need to be based on not meeting some of these criteria. There's nothing in our ordinance currently that says we don't believe we have enough policy to deny an application. So it would need to be that you find that this application does not meet some of our ordinances, deny it based on that, and then it's still something that council would have to originate with them.
Jessica, I don't think you have to deny it. You just have to suspend voting on it. And you've got 90 days to do that. You don't have to deny it.
And that may be something is that something we can,
Automatically approved if not voted on within 90 days. For the ordinances just passed last year.
I think we're agreeing.
So we can suspend voting. Is that correct? I move to suspend voting on all things murals and sign.
Yep.
Yeah, we do
Oh,
have a
sorry.
current motion.
you have a
on the
motion
floor.
and a second
Okay.
to approve.
So we have to vote on this one.
You don't have to vote, you just got to.
Well, the motion's been made and
You can-
seconded, so we
A
know
vote
there's.
has to be made on that motion.
They can abstain from voting, though. Everybody can abstain from voting if they want to, or it's up to each individual. Okay, all in favor of approving the motion and the second signify by raising your left hand. All opposed signify by raising your right hand. There are no votes.
Jessica, I thought if you got one vote in favor and four abstaining, doesn't that pass as a vote?
We need a
Majority.
majority of the current members of the committee that are present.
You'd need three votes. You would need three votes to pass.
If you have four abstaining votes, I believe because you're not voting, when you're abstaining, that takes care of your majority issue because you've
I don't
got a
think it
majority
does.
here.
It's the majority of those
Point of
present.
order, I believe.
You want to go with motion as is? Then is it most appropriate to go with motion as is?
I don't know that, I don't agree that abstaining takes away the majority. You have a majority, you have 5 members here, a majority with 3 members voting in favor of the motion.
And we don't have three either way.
What are you asking about either way? I mean, so there was a motion, the current motion is to approve. That's what's being voted on.
With two voting to approve that motion.
So it so it's denied.
Okay. So we will move to our next item. Agenda item 3E is COA 2024-018 for 116 South Pecan Street. The applicant is Mr. J.W. Ramsher, who is also the owner of the building. He is requesting to paint a approximately 20-foot by 25-foot section of the southeast corner of the south facade of this building with a mural. It's over the existing location of where a ghost sign once was. This building is listed as contributing to the Downtown Historic District. As many of you know, this building over its history was heavily altered. And then back in 2014, the owner completed an extensive restoration project to return the south and east facades back to its historic appearance, including brick restoration on the south side and replacement of ornamental features on the east side. City ordinance criteria B, C, D, F, H, J, and K also relate to this proposal. This is the existing facade taken from essentially City Hall. So you can see here is that south facade as is. And this is the, excuse me, the proposal that is submitted by the applicant. It is the Nacogdoches Tricentennial logo that was used back in 2016, I believe, with some azaleas and some ornamental work at the top. And here is the map, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after any public comment. I'm not sure if the owner is here. Oh, if you have any comment or questions of him.
Any questions of the owner? No questions. Any questions of Jessica?
I just want to make a comment. We've been down this road before with this building, and I strongly disagree with painting the brick. As y'all know, I've given a history of it. He wrote in the Sentinel about the structure of this brick. And I think painting it's a no. It's my personal opinion.
I agree.
Me too.
Do we have any, do you want to call for
We have
any?
a motion?
I make a motion that we deny, let me get the number, sorry. COA 2024-018, the painting of the mural in the southeast corner of the building at 116 South Pecan, due to the structure of the brick being very porous and deteriorating when painted.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Our next item is 3F. This is COA 2024-020 for 716 East Main Street. The applicant is Travis Mast. They are requesting to paint over an existing mural on a retaining wall at 716 East Main Street. The proposed design is what I like to call a kind of postcard style, where it says block or bubble letters with images of Nacogdoches history inside of them. Again, this property is 716 East Main Street. We are talking about the retaining wall, not painting on any buildings or structures that are there. And it is in the downtown National Register District, but is not, the retaining wall itself is not referenced in any of our survey material. And we find that criteria ordinance B, C, D, J, and K do relate to this proposal. You see this is an image of the previous painting that was there, was very faded, and then this is the proposal to go on that retaining wall. And then we do have a map here. Again, it's of the retaining wall that goes in between these two properties, so it doesn't show up on a map necessarily, but that's the approximate location. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have after public comment, and the owner and applicant are here as well.
Any questions of the owner and applicant? Would you like to come forward? Thank you. Any questions? I don't have a problem with it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'd like to speak to. I'm Lynn Myers. I'm with Brushing Up NAC, and we're the group that's been responsible for many of the murals that have gone up. I think that this group, you all, have the impression that these murals are just kind of thrown together on a whim by a bunch of crazy artists, and actually that's not the case. For this wall, this impact wall, we started working on this a year ago in July, and we saw that there was a fading mural excuse me, on the retaining wall. And we went to the manager of the business. It was then called the Impact Thrift Store. And we asked her if it would be okay if we were to redo the mural and freshen it. And she said, at that time, she said, yes, as long as it involved children, because her store was about raising funds for children at risk. When we visited her again in September of last year, we were told that her health was failing and she was going to have to give up the store. So that kind of freed us to do something other than children because we didn't know who would be moving into the building. In October, I think Jessica and Tori held a workshop with City Council, and we talked about doing historic murals in downtown, and they approved it. And Randy even suggested that he would give all 3 of his walls to Brushing Up Nacked paint, and that he would pay for the first one. And that became the Garden Capital of Texas mural. So that kind of gave us the incentive to keep going, and we had a lot of very positive public comment about that. At the same time, while we engaged with Michelle, she's still here, we engaged with Michelle to design the Garden Capital mural, and she also presented to us a drawing of what has been proposed. It was Nacogdoches within the letters, historic scenes of the history of Nac. And so we thought, okay, that's great. We're not tied to doing children, so that would be a really refreshing, nice mural for people who are coming into the city from the east. So in December of last year, we looked up the CAD system, the tax appraisal CAD system, to find out the details to do the COA for the wall. And we met with John and Travis Mast, who we determined owned the land in front of the retaining wall. It turns out it's owned by Travis. He does not own the building, but he does own the land. So we took the COA to Jessica, and she also looked it up on the CAD system and said, whoops, that retaining wall does not belong to Travis Mast. It belongs to the people that own the house up above the retaining wall. And that is an investment firm called 2212 Dunlovey, and they're based out of Houston. So we have no name of the person, just this investment firm, no telephone number. So anyway, I wrote him a letter. This was in January. I wrote him a letter with the COA attached, asking for his approval to repaint the retaining wall. I got nothing back. I wrote him a second letter the following month and still received nothing back. So about that time, we were planning for the blueberry mural. I know this is a long saga, but there's a point to it. About that time, we engaged Tracy Pinkston to help us with the blueberry mural. And Tracy works at Heritage Title, and for 20 years has been doing research on titles, and she understands surveys. So she went back and looked at all of the surveys and determined that the retaining wall is actually on the land that is owned by Travis Mast. So I then took the COA to Travis. He signed it, gave that to Jessica. I think that I also discussed it with Randy Johnson. He discussed it with the attorney, and it was determined that the retaining wall is on Travis Mast's land. The COA has been signed. All we want to do is allow Michelle and Dixie and whoever else they engage to paint it. They're doing it for free. It's costing the city nothing. And we are just refreshing an existing but faded and peeling and rotted, moldy retaining wall graphic. That's all I have to say. So 1 year later, we're still trying to get approval to do a free mural.
And thank you for refreshing.
I have a question
Me?
for her.
Oh,
Mhm.
Lynn? Yes, she's got a question for you.
How many more murals do you have planned?
At this
Brushing
time-
up Mac.
At this time, we have none planned because we have no funding.
We have a motion.
Yes, can I make a motion that we accept COA 2024-020 for a refreshed new mural at 716 East Main Street?
A second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, it's approved. Do you want a motion to have a moratorium until? Yeah, let's see.
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion to have a moratorium on murals until we have further policy and instruction with the city council.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Oh, maybe something you have to- As far as procedurally.
So as I understand, you're asking for a motion to approve a moratorium on any murals that come before this committee, correct? Is that the basis of your motion?
Yes, that's
Okay.
mine, yes.
Well, that matter is not on the agenda for approval. The only matters that are on the agenda are what's listed. So I think we have to go by what's listed on the agenda itself. If the committee would like to put that on a future agenda, it can to approve that. But until then, that motion should not be considered by the committee.
I think the same impact's done by the statement. I don't think we need to put it on the agenda. You know, you've heard the wishes of the majority of the members. I want to reiterate again, I've never heard anyone on this board personally say they're against murals at all. They just want some guidelines to be able to make sure we're doing it right and that we have a basis for denying something that should be denied.
And that will be recorded in our minutes.
Okay, thank you.
So your last item for today is 3G, COA 2024-021 for 201 East Main Street. The applicant is Kim Crisp, and he is requesting to paint the west facade of the building located at 201 East Main Street with a painting of famous figures and then the wording of "Have you ever been to Nacogdoches?" The facade of the building is currently painted a tan white base with black trim. And he did not supply a approximate size, but it would be a lot of that west facade. 201 East Main Street is listed as contributing to the Downtown National Register District, and it's a 1907 two-story brick commercial structure with a flat roof. City staff find that B, C, D, H, J, and K relate to this proposed project. You can see here a picture of the existing west facade, and then this is the mock-up that was supplied by the applicant. And we also have a map of where the building is. It's directly kind of catty corner to the Boss Light bookstore. So that's essentially doing it from their corner, looking at that 201 East Main Street. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have after any public comment. I'm not sure if Michelle's here as well, if you have any questions of the applicant.
Any questions?
What is the, down at the end, it says movie screen. What is that?
They used to show movies on that building, and we're leaving that space blank because he wants to continue showing movies for the community on that space.
So it would just be a blank
It
space?
would just be, it'd be blank, but we just showed them where, this is where.
I'm glad you asked that question because I was wondering why we were putting those words on the side of the building. Good.
And I should have clarified that. I asked Mr. Chris that too. I was like, are you mounting a screen for this? Because that may
Okay.
be a problem. He said, he's not.
Are we allowed to use these images of these people, characters, copyright laws and everything?
Yes, for art, as long as, if I was putting them on a T-shirt and selling them, that's where licensing comes in, but I've spoken to 2 licensing lawyers and they said to paint artwork of them. Yeah, if I put Fredonia Brewery can, a beer in their hand, then that's a no. But to take their pictures and pay homage through art
Okay,
is fine.
okay.
Any more questions? Any questions, Jessica? Thank you. You have a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion. We accept the COA 2024-021 for 201 East Main Street to have you ever been to Nacogdoches? And I want to say that the reason I'm saying this is this building is already painted.
Do you have a second? Motion died for lack of a second.
Okay. And that is all we have for you today. Thank you very much.